I shared a bit of brutal honesty yesterday in the private Infertility Sucks You Don't group on Facebook. And I shared that from a young age, I have struggled with self-image and wanting to fit in. Who have naturally red hair. I didn't like my red hair. I didn't like my body, specifically my thighs. It's always been a point for me. And then when I got my period, it seemed like it all went from bad to worse. For those who don't know me, my name is Shannon Wooten. I am a lifestyle infertility specialist, and I help women who feel disconnected from their bodies heal by owning infertility sucks, you don't. So I know that coming into womanhood is said to be this amazing point in your life, but for me, as long as I can remember, my period and being a woman has been nothing but a nightmare. And so I looked at womanhood as being a nightmare too, my whole life. And one more thing I did not like about myself. One more thing that made me feel like I needed to hide a part of who I was. Because when I got my period, along with it came tremendous amount of period cramps. Now, at the time, I had no idea why it was that way. My mother always had terrible period cramps, but as we traveled through our journey with infertility, I later came to learn that it was from PCOS, and endometriosis were a byproduct of having terrible cramps. At least they could be, and they were for me. But for me, it became, like I said, one more thing I didn't like about myself. One more thing I needed to shield from the world, because I felt like to share that was just complaining. I knew a lot of people that were, of the mindset of, oh, I don't really have bad period cramps, so I wanted to be like that. And it became one more thing I hated about my body. So for years, I struggled with low self-esteem and feeling like my body was trying to kill me each month from the cramps, which only made my self-esteem, my self-image, my self-value worse. And introduce infertility into the mix, and you might think that the palpability of the depression would crush me, and you would be right. I know I talk a lot about making space for your feelings, good or bad, and dealing with your feelings. And in speaking about it, it's not intended to make you feel worse or to scare you into feeling like, okay, well, if I go into this, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Rather, it is to help you find healing. And it did for me. And one of the things that I do to continue to find healing, because I believe that infertility, while it is such a physical journey, all the doctor's visits, all the drugs, surgery, whatever it is, whatever route you choose to go to or through to try and heal it or help you, it's very physical. But for me, one of the things that I learned once I made the decision that I wanted to heal, that I wanted to understand what was going on, where my depression was coming from, it was like a light bulb went off. I needed to understand not only physically what was happening to me, but mentally what was going on. And that was very intimidating, and it's very emotional, because it's basically saying to yourself, something is not right with me. Something is making me feel wrong. Something is making me feel off, and I need to physically delve into finding what that is. One of the things that I've done most recently was a 7-day healing group, symposium, if you will, with somebody by the name of Artie Wu. And he suggests a lot of amazing things. And one of the things that he suggests is that the pain that we deal with is to be considered a wound. It's a hurt. It's a gaping open wound that needs, in our mind, to be protected and or covered up. But he also suggests something very enlightening, and that is that our wounds are not linear. It is not like I went from having a period to discovering I have infertility, to struggling with what that means, to not understanding what it means, to continuing to try and fail, and I have depression. He suggests that while the feeling that is present in the immediate present of that wound, which would be for me infertility, while that can be intense because it is happening right now, but it can also feel so intense because that particular wound is actually affected by other wounds that are still open, other wounds that are still unhealed. So I've talked with quite a few people about infertility, and I'm very humbled and grateful for those of you that have opened up to me, and for the fact that I'm able to share my journey and my experiences with you and continue to give infertility and the struggle that is it and surrounding it a voice. But I have learned that there are some people who struggle with infertility that do struggle with depression, like myself, and some people that don't. And every time I talk to somebody that says, I really never experienced that level of pain or depression that you're speaking of, but I felt other things, I always come away from the conversation feeling really dumbfounded, because I always wondered, well, what the heck? What the heck is wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? Why is it so depressing for me and so extreme for me? And maybe they're able to come back from it better, and maybe able to accept it better. What is wrong with me? And I'm very honest about my deep depression from infertility and how I feel it brought a depression to me. And I always blamed it while I was in the midst of the struggle, and we're still in the middle of the struggle, but while I was in the thick of my depression with infertility, I guess I should say, I blamed it for bringing me down. I blamed it for ruining my life, for making me dislike me, and for making me hate my body even, and becoming disassociated from it. But with dealing with my feelings of depression and anger and grief of infertility, and getting to a place where I'm able to understand healing them, has taught me is that the wound, those feelings of me disliking myself, me feeling brought down, me disassociating myself from my body, my self-image, and feeling shamed, or like I didn't want other people to know that I felt that way, that was a wound that was always left open. That body image issue, that wanting to be liked by everyone else, or to not feel like a freak, or to be able to fit in, that was a wound that was left open. And while infertility may have compounded it, may have made it worse, it was always going to be left open. It was always going to hurt me. It was always going to be in need of healing. And so I don't encourage you to, face your pain so you feel worse. I encourage you to do it because it may not be just this thing. It may not be just this immediate present wound that needs healing. It may be something that was left open that always and would have always needed to be healed as well. Because sometimes our wounds are deeper than we think. Thank you guys for signing on. Throw me some hearts or comments below if you like this video. And don't forget to jump inside the private Facebook group, Infertility Sucks, You Don't, and join the conversation. Otherwise, my heart is already with you. Thank you for signing on as always. Be good to yourself. Have a great week and an even better day. Peace. Bye.